Jujutsu Kaisen's writing has absolutely no fear, and I mean that in the most literal way possible. Before we hop into this discussion about Jujutsu Kaisen's writing, please do me a favor and leave your own thoughts on Jujutsu Kaisen's writing in the comment section down below. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Now, let's get into it. What's up guys, I got the pencil here, and let's talk about Jujutsu Kaisen and why I believe its writing has absolutely no fear. Now, the thing is, I believe that a lot of shounen manga in general have a sort of fear when it comes to dealing with their characters in particular, and their storytelling honestly. They aren't necessarily too willing to dive into the deep darkness that is actually out there in the world, or dive into the darkness with their main characters in particular. They may do it with villains, they may do it with side characters, they may do it with characters who are not too central to the plot, but they never want to do it to their main characters. They never want to make their main characters monsters, and I understand that. When you're writing a shonen manga, you are writing an inspiring tale for young readers. Remember, as much as we like shonen manga, we are adults, and it's not really written for us. It's still written for us as in we can enjoy a good story regardless, and in fact, sometimes it's harder to write a kid's story than it is to write an adult story. But the thing is, the way that Jujutsu Kaisen sets itself apart from a lot of other shows of its ilk, a lot of other manga of its ilk, is by having very little fear, if any fear at all, towards the idea of breaking down its main characters to their darker, more humanistic, survival-like natures. One of my favorite moments in the entire series is when our main character, Itadori, someone who's characterized himself entirely around saving people, saving humans, and trying to not kill, when put in a scenario that broke him mentally, psychologically, all of that went away. Everything else seemed like a lie. The truth came out. When backed up against the wall, when pushed to his limits, Itadori will not only try to kill you, but he will inform you that your death is imminent. And I love that, mainly because it shows that the mangaka, Akutame Sensei, has no fear at all about showing us the real, deep, primal natures of his characters. Because the thing is, Itadori's reaction, if you put yourself in that situation, is entirely feasible. You understand how Itadori got to that point because you watched it. You fully are on the side of Itadori in that moment. It feels like the most human reaction. A more model type hero character would have sterned themselves and proudly declare that they're gonna avenge their lost friend Junpei. But no, none of that mattered. Not in the moment. Because the first thing that came to Itadori's mind was that he had to kill Mahito. And that's realistic. It feels human. That's the thing. The reason I say Jujutsu Kaisen's writing has no fear is because it's not afraid to give us the humanity of the characters we're watching and reading. Because that's what we get to. When broken down to their core aspects, humans are very few things. And to see those few things get realized in a series like Jujutsu Kaisen, it's great to see. Same thing happens with Megumi. Megumi, when pushed up against a corner against a finger bearer, does the impossible. After being reminded of a lesson that Gojo taught him, the idea that he needs to fight all out at all times because he will die alone. He breaks. He goes down into despair for a moment. But when he reopens his eyes, there's a grin on his face, and he's ready to do whatever he can to survive. Bringing out those primal survival-based instincts is something I love to see because they're very rare. That's the thing. Jujutsu Kaisen's writing stands out so much to me because it's very rare to see characters treated like this. It's rare to see that when broken down to their basic aspects, when broken down to a life or death scenario, that all desire for anything moral goes away. All desire for anything other than survival goes away. It's great to see that because it's real. It feels real. It feels plausible. These reactions that our characters are giving us are what feel like reactions we would have as people. Because those situations, while so beyond our scope of understanding, by being an entirely different world based around curses and cursed energy and different techniques and all that stuff, the basic things that we can relate to, these human characters and their human reactions, feel so plausible and real. The reason I like this series so much is because while we do have those idealistic moments of Itadori being a hero, of Megumi being a hero, the thing that matters the most is when we see them broken down and those ideals are tested. And honestly, even though those ideals break down, that doesn't mean the test has failed. It just shows us what those characters are really made of, what those characters really go for, and I love that. As much as I love other series like My Hero Academia, one of the main things I'll always feel awkward about is when certain characters make decisions that don't feel real, they don't feel logical, but they make sense in the context of what they are. When a character is more so a lesson for somebody else, a moral symbol, an ideology that they need to promote, that is something where they will feel unrealistic in their choices, but overall it'll make sense in terms of the greater narrative and the purpose they serve within that narrative. But honestly, I prefer the Jujutsu Kaisen style where they aren't afraid to let their characters have human reactions, because it makes me tie into the story even more, it makes me believe it even more. Because every single time I see Itadori get angry, every single time I see Itadori fail, every single time I see Itadori struggle, grow, relapse, all of this stuff, every time I see that, it brings out more interest in me rather than shutting me away. It ties me deeper into the narrative because these are real human characters in a non-real situation. It's growth. It's amazing. It's great to see human characters made humanely and to see those things pushed. And I love it when characters such as Nobara are put in situations that arguably are life and death, and you see something come out of them that you've never seen before. Like Itadori and Megumi, you could always tell something was there. Both of those moments were really their ideals being pushed and tested, but to a point, up until the fight with the two brothers, we hadn't seen Nobara really pushed, really tested, really put on the brink between life and death. So when we see it with her, and the first thing that comes to mind after she sees how her powers would interact with theirs is the instant idea of self-harm in order to harm them, by using resonance in such a way to instantly break them down as well. It's those moments where you realize that these characters understand the world they're in and how they need to act in it better than they're even capable of verbalizing. That moment where you see Nobara look down on the being she just slaughtered with a smile on her face, it's weird, it's strange, but you understand why. This was someone threatening her life. She wasn't going to give them an honorable death. She wasn't going to give them something gentle or nice or saving. She wasn't going to apologize to them. She was going to defeat them. She was going to kill them because it was her life or theirs. It was Itadori's life or theirs, at least in her mind. And to see that where these characters, our entire main trio really, is unafraid of the moral implications of their actions, or not necessarily unafraid, but accepts the moral implications of their actions and rolls with them anyway, because that's the only way they can survive, that's the only way they can win, that's the only way they can get vengeance. It feels good, it feels realistic, it feels meaty. I love it because it adds depth to characters. Like knowing that Itadori at any moment, if pushed, can fall to the level of making himself feel like all his morals are incorrect and that he has to kill a person. That's great for future storytelling, because then it gets the reader questioning, what are the limits? How far can Itadori go? How far will Itadori fall? What's going on? What can we do? How much further can he go? Now that we know that Megumi is not afraid any longer of going into his depths, surpassing his limits, then we're questioning, how far can he go? Where are his limits? What is this growth? Will we ever see more completed? Will we ever see more of this? When we see Nobara's sadism come out, we see the different levels, the sadism and the intelligence. When we see that come out, then questions how we're going to see the scenario redone. How are we going to see the aspects of the scenario done again? How much further can she go? Because the thing that I don't like about model characters is that they have to be model characters. They can very rarely stretch out into their own real deep depths, and it makes you question less and less. You always know how something's going to end, but you can also almost guess how it's going to be executed. In the case of Jujutsu Kaisen, I can guess nothing, because I don't know these limits. I don't know these characters' depths. I've seen them. I'm seeing them, and I love that. But they can always go further than I personally could ever imagine. And that's all up to how the mangaka decides to take them. And I think that's beautiful. And honestly, I've only been focusing on our main trio, mainly because if I were to go into any further depth about the rest of the cast, I would be getting into manga spoilers, and I don't want to do that in this video. I will wait, most likely, for season 2 of the anime to pop up before I go into full depth on how I really feel about Jujutsu Kaisen's writing, and how much further Akutami Sensei has pushed it in the manga itself, and how much I love it. At the moment, I'm glad. The main thing I have to say about Jujutsu Kaisen's writing and its characters and why it has no fear is because it isn't afraid of making its characters human and everything that entails. Because humanity is being a kind boy who can swing a baseball bat with all his strength. But humanity is also the person declaring that he will kill somebody who took his friend away. Humanity is being a locked up person who doesn't really want to do so much and honestly feels bad about his past actions as a delinquent. But at the same time, someone who's unafraid to challenge their depths in the moment of death and is willing to give their all and more than they knew they ever had because they know they're going to die alone. Humanity is loving and caring about the way you look and how you want to present yourself and how strong you are, but in the same moment being willing to cause yourself harm in order to defeat the enemy that stands against you. every single part of this is humanity. And I think that's beautiful. But those are my thoughts. That's what I think makes these Jujutsu Kaisen characters so unbelievably human. But what do you think? What are y'all rocking with? Do you think I'm a little bit nuts? Do you think that there's even more to praise about Jujutsu Kaisen's writing and how it has no fear? Let's see. Tell me in the comment section down below. Or, on the opposite, you don't have to agree with me. Tell me where you think Jujutsu Kaisen's writing does have fear, because I'd be very interested to hear about it. This is a very interesting discussion point, and I wish I could go more in depth, but really, shockingly enough, despite how much the anime covered, getting only about 60-ish chapters into the manga, the writing gets better and better. It gets more and more developed. I love it more and more and more as it goes on. So, for y'all anime watchers out there, trust me, you've barely gotten into anything, and I can only say that's fantastic because the writing so far is already very, very good. But that's me. Please tell me your thoughts on Jujutsu Kaisen's writing in the comment section down below, and thank you guys so much for watching. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with a Pencil, writing off.